So I want to bring to the stage the wonderful, the talented, the man with much information, Ben from Mesh Studios.
Thank you, Shelley. Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Baker. I am from Mesh. We are a virtual production line producing company. We work with productions all the time to break down your script, give you a budget, a schedule, get you a crew, get you vendors. That's what we do. We're here to talk about Fathead, though. This is the production that you see behind me. The script of Fathead, written by c.Craig Patterson, was a love letter to his mother and a journey of Fathead and her brother Toodaloo going through the badlands of the junkyard paradise and being pursued by an army of ravenous, murderous children called the Ragamuffin Army.
All there are now are duns and ragamuffins. Ragamuffins and duns. One always taking, one always runs. Who needs them? Hey! Are you gonna run now, girl? Run.
I should also mention that Fathead has been nominated for an NAACP Image Award, so it's currently in the running for several festivals,
Yes.
and it'll be out in the spring.
Fathead started, it was a story that my mother told me about her and her friends growing up in New Orleans, and I just took her story and threw it into a junkyard and made it like insane, right? So I got a serendipitous and kind of clandestine phone call from the ETC that I had never heard of in my life, telling me I was a finalist for something that I did not apply to. And I was like, well, what do I need to do? He's like, Eric Weaver was like, well, do you have a film that you would like to do that no one will pay for? And I said, absolutely, I do. I do. And I was like, well, what's the next steps? He was like, well, you have to talk to 40 different CTOs over the next 2 weeks at 15 minutes apiece and just kind of get to know them. And then in 2 weeks, there's going to be a panel of 200 people that you have to pitch to on Zoom. And because I was lucky enough to have had the story before that phone call, I didn't have to like scramble and think of a story to do. So instead of using those 40 phone calls to just kind of, say hello and this is who I am, I was able to pitch to each one of them beforehand, before that day, and get their feedback and what they would do and how they would approach it. So on the day, I didn't have to pitch to a single stranger. Like I had people that were invested in it and wanted to see the success of it. And we were lucky enough to be selected, and all of those folks wanted to come play in the junkyard with me. I was very, very fortunate. I had no idea that this was going to be a virtual production, had never heard of virtual production. But obviously, it's much safer to put children on a volume stage than put them inside of a junkyard. I was telling the team that we went and scouted many actual junkyards, and apparently in junkyards there's things like coyotes and mountain lions and snakes and stuff. So like that would have been a no-go for no parent was going to sign off on that. So yeah, so it worked out really cool.
So I've learned about working with kids, for instance, and how it can be really extremely helpful to work on a stage, work on a virtual production stage, specifically if you have kid-centric or kind of under 18, I guess, is the age where you have to otherwise have a guardian there. And when you have kids, there's a 6-hour time shoot limit. So
yeah, we had 8. Yeah, 8 hours.
Okay, you had 8. Okay, but with that time, if, for instance, you have an exterior night shot,
right,
to be able to do that during the day with a kid, but on your stage, you can dial the sun in any direction that you want it to be, so that it could be nighttime. You can control sound, you can control weather. It can be magic hour for 8 hours straight.
It was.
It was 8, so there you go. So that can be a huge time saver and money saver.
And with the right DP, the DP is the best person to make your movie cheaper or your project cheaper, because ultimately, scripts are unlimited, right? You read a script, everyone has a different view. from there, you dig in. Then the production designer builds you a world. If they have a VAD team like ours, they're building you a 3D world, low res. Then the DP comes in. He frames it. It goes from like the script is unlimited to the production designer to the DP, right? All of a sudden, this is all you had to make. And so that's the benefit of bringing that team, that core team to the beginning.
And to that point, like, you can control the sun, right? That's like an incredible thing that, you know, I wasn't able to do beforehand, right? So to be able to move the sun around and to be able to like, oh man, you know, it'd be cool if we had a little bit of a cloud in front of that sun right there, like, and they are able to do that in real time. You know, it's a beautiful thing to be able to utilize.
I want to build him up too. I think that decision of changing the sky is where people get decision paralysis, right? Because if you could imagine, he has his A team, he has an art director, he has Unreal open, we're driving it.
Right.
Anything could happen. And there's a certain level of vulnerability because guess what? The tech is real time, so like you don't have to wait 2 hours for that final render. We were doing final quality environments at 90 frames a second, final pixel, photoreal environments at 90 frames a second. That's incomprehensible versus a couple years ago when I was at MPC or some of these VFX studios where it's a couple hours a frame. Like, and so that in itself means that everything moves faster. Right. Like every single component that you can imagine moves faster. And so then it's about how do I trust the person next to me to make the decision because I no longer have the availability to make every decision with them. Like it's just happening live. Everyone's working at the same time.
We had almost 100 seats of people sitting there watching. The camera lens, it actually, we had a device on it that helped it stream. We were streaming to 5 different CTOs around the world who were seeing the exact frame that we're shooting and could give notes on it. And it was a different way to direct. It was a different way to think about life. But because of those sessions that we were having where I was on a Zoom with 20 people and having to give my opinions and my thoughts out there, you kind of lose the fear of being wrong because being wrong, like you lose more by indecision than wrong decision.
Are there any other questions? Oh, one more. Okay, last question. Anybody? We're good. Everybody's.
Real quick question.
Yeah.
And a film will typically shoot raw, flat,
Yes.
then colored later. What happens here?
Same.
We had Fifth Kind, which was what c.Craig was talking about, streaming to everyone who could see offset. And then we were putting the raw cameras up in the cloud, and then they were being colored there.
Even though we were shooting in RAW, we see what it's going to look like, give or take, as we're shooting. Like the monitors that I would be looking at, even though I was looking off of the DP's monitor because I happened to sit next to the DP.
And really, you haven't got it until you're looking at it from the camera. That's where you really have got to know, and that's what you're working towards.
And then in pre-production, because you're working with all those people, those individuals, you have an environment that you're trying to make look exactly the way it would on the day, but then you add a post-process to make it a LUT that you are then replicating on the stage as well. So like, and you could kick out the data from the LUT out of Unreal and send it to the post-production team afterwards if they want to match it, right? So you're doing all the same work that we're saying in pre-production, and then you're redoing it and adding more, and then you're right. Hopefully you're not redoing it in post. Hopefully in post you're just having to edit.
Is the film going to be available for people to check out online in the spring?
After the festival run.
And where's it going to be in the festival?
We're waiting to see where our premiere will be. We're anxiously waiting.
I know Tribeca's on the list.
It certainly is.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Thank you, everyone.